más.
Mi nombre es Roberto Rosa Rodríguez y estamos aquí porque queremos invitarlos que vengan a conocer este hermoso paraíso entre ciénagas, ríos, mares. Nos encontramos al norte del departamento del Chocó, límite con Panamá, ofreciendo una bandeja de oportunidades para disfrutar. Esta iniciativa de ecoturismo la conformamos 8 comunidades. Entre ellas tenemos la cabecera municipal, que está El Puerto, y está Ticolé, Marriaga, Tumaradó, El Roto, Bocas del Atrato, Arena y Santuario, donde se encuentra el Museo Arqueológico, que está cimentado sobre la primera ciudad fundada en tierra firme, como lo es Santa María la Antigua del Darién.
El corredor ecoturístico Darién-Atrato integra 4 reservas naturales que albergan una gran biodiversidad. El Parque Nacional Natural Los Catíos, declarado por la UNESCO como Patrimonio Natural de la Humanidad. El Parque Arqueológico e Histórico Santa María de la Antigua del Darién. El Distrito Regional de Manejo Integrado Lago Azul Los Manatíes y los manglares de Bocas del Atrato. Los servicios que ofrecen estas comunidades le permitirán disfrutar de una nueva e inolvidable experiencia con recorridos en canoa o en kayak en río y senderos acuáticos, avistamiento de aves, primates, manatíes y diferentes especies, salidas de pesca, presentación cultural y noche de tertulia, interpretación ambiental y cultural, alojamiento en cabaña, alimentación típica campesina y afroribereña, aprovechando la formación del colectivo de comunicaciones, con apoyo de la FAO. En agosto de 2019 comenzaron a hacer difusión de su oferta a través de redes sociales. Sin embargo, ante la llegada de la pandemia, incursionaron en el desarrollo de nuevos canales como la página web y la alianza con instituciones y organizaciones de promoción turística local. Hoy, gracias al uso de las plataformas digitales, han incrementado sus ingresos en un 25% aproximadamente. Encuentren su página web y cuentas en Facebook e Instagram como Ecoturismo Darién-Atrato.
Quiero invitarlos a que vengan a conocer y a darse el gusto de mirar algo diferente y probar lo que es estar en un territorio donde usted consigue selva, consigue lagos, consigue ríos, consigue playa, consigue aves, consigue cualquier cantidad de cosas hermosas para conocer y para disfrutar.
Ecoturismo Darién-Atrato. Aventúrese a explorar una de las regiones más biodiversas de Colombia, donde el majestuoso río Atrato se entremezcla con el Darién chocuano. Digitalización, integración y ecoturismo, la nueva fórmula del desarrollo rural.
Kolonga mito kamarama niko onguti napkorkoroy. Nakita marakimarama ninga tuinapkoroye nito hurimarama tia chituiti orokihoy. To naoptenge Alfredo nakita marakimarama echenge mi kuamarama nonge pai naptong hurimarama niko onguti tuinapuka.
Costa Rica posee una riqueza biológica y cultural que permite el encuentro de gran biodiversidad de especies y manifestaciones culturales, y se destaca por sus esfuerzos de conservación y protección del medio ambiente.
Este emprendimiento inicia con una idea acorde a nuestra enseñanza que nos dieron nuestros ancestros, para que el turista conozca nuestra costumbre, porque aquí está lo espeso de mi cultura.
En las últimas décadas, el turismo ha sido un motor de la economía, ofreciendo oportunidades en las comunidades rurales, como es el caso de don Alfredo, dueño del Centro Ecocultural Toina Fueja, en la zona norte de Costa Rica.
Si yo no tengo yuca, yo le compro a otra persona. Si yo no tengo pejibaye, se lo compramos a otra persona. La artesanía y todo lo que se vende aquí es producto de aquí mismo y es hecho por los indígenas. Son beneficiados más de 30 familias.
Desde hace unos años, gracias a la ayuda de sus hijos, don Alfredo se posicionó en redes sociales, Facebook, WhatsApp, como una forma de promocionar su negocio.
Se creó una página de Facebook con algunas de las fotos de acá, del lugar, algunos de los animales que tenemos por acá, también las actividades que hacemos.
Nos gustaría más como capacitarnos, como que hubieran capacitaciones que nos ayudaran a saber sobre páginas web, sobre cómo utilizar las redes.
La pandemia del COVID-19 ha mermado el emprendimiento de don Alfredo, como a todos los negocios turísticos del país. El turismo rural intenta migrar a plataformas digitales para comercializar y potenciar sus oportunidades. Sin embargo, es necesario eliminar la brecha digital.
Nuestro CESI, Centro Comunitario Inteligente, número 36, se ha enfocado mucho en el desarrollo de las destrezas digitales. La gente ha buscado cómo capacitarse. Hemos dado inglés para el turismo, y ese inglés para el turismo lo recibieron unas mujeres de la comunidad de Río Celeste. Hace poco se grabó un grupo por profesores del MISIT en marketing digital.
Tomamos la decisión de que Copelesca brindara los servicios de infocomunicaciones, especialmente Internet, con el fin en aquel momento de disminuir la brecha digital, donde llevamos Internet a más de 3.500 familias dedicadas a la agricultura. Les transformó lógicamente la vida.
El gobierno de Costa Rica ha priorizado la franja de desarrollo de la zona norte con el fin de atender a las poblaciones en condición de vulnerabilidad.
Hoy la conectividad está relacionada con las posibilidades de hacer comercio de los pequeños productores locales. Está directamente relacionada con la capacidad de educación. Es una manera de promocionar el turismo de la zona, y tanto el gobierno, la empresa privada, las organizaciones productivas como la comunidad demandan mejor productividad para su desarrollo.
Para Costa Rica es clave continuar promoviendo el turismo rural comunitario y la digitalización comercial, con el objetivo de eliminar las brechas digitales en la zona, generar nuevas oportunidades y mejorar la economía de las familias rurales.
Vive los colores. Vive los paisajes. Vive la gastronomía. Vive la conectividad. Vive el turismo de convivencia. Vive la experiencia yunguilla.
Entre la magnífica biodiversidad de la selva amazónica se encuentran los cantones de Tena, Archidona y Carlos Julio Arosemena en la provincia de Napo, en Ecuador. Estos centros poblados son el hogar de diversas organizaciones de productores, quienes sustentan su economía en el uso sostenible de los recursos naturales. El encanto de la oferta productiva de esta zona se basa en un sistema ancestral de producción agroforestal denominada chacra, que fomenta la conservación de la agrobiodiversidad de más de 100 especies de plantas,
Sobre de la chacra también es donde que nosotros enseñamos a nuestros hijos, porque nuestros abuelos, nuestros ancestros nos han dado sus dones, han dado sus rituales, que donde que nosotros podemos consumir, donde que nosotros podemos enseñar a nuestros nietos, a nuestros hijos, para que este producto ya no se termine.
El cacao, la vainilla, el jengibre y la guayusa son algunos de los productos agroalimentarios con valor agregado que las organizaciones Quichuas Callari, Guiñac y Satsayacu ofrecen en el mercado interno e internacional a través de procesos de certificación agroecológica y de garantía local. La evolución de la dinámica de los modelos productivos y la demanda del mercado han impulsado a que estas comunidades adapten sus formatos de comercialización a plataformas digitales, ampliando el alcance de la oferta de sus productos y servicios a consumidores responsables, conscientes e interesados en el cuidado del planeta.
Poder, claro, contar con el boom, claro, digital de las redes sociales, pero también poder llegar a contar con una página web propia que nos permita también comercializar con mayor alcance a diferentes partes, no solamente del país, sino del mundo también.
Esta oferta de productos y servicios agroalimentarios se complementa con la promoción del turismo ecológico.
Trata de impulsar lo que es conectividad en las zonas rurales y de promover emprendimientos diferentes para diversificar ingresos. El tema del turismo rural es un ejemplo que aquí en Napo y que estamos trabajando para escalar.
Los visitantes pueden conocer a través de los paisajes naturales y productivos los rasgos culturales de vida con la conservación de la naturaleza, lo que ha generado mayores ingresos para las familias, dinamizando estrategias innovadoras para garantizar y reconocer la calidad de su producción y así afrontar los retos de la reactivación con nuevos mecanismos financieros innovadores que facilitan la inversión y las alianzas público-privadas apoyan
Napo Buen Vivir y dar continuidad a lo que son proyectos de bioeconomía, conservación, sostenibilidad en la provincia de Napo.
Productores y productoras de Napo han dado en la digitalización e innovación una forma de fortalecer sus capacidades de liderazgo y posicionamiento de su trabajo en el Ecuador y a nivel mundial, así como contar con insumos de incidencia política para el acceso a incentivos, para el mejoramiento de las cadenas de valor y la diversificación de sus productos y servicios.
Déjate seducir por el verde esmeralda de sus pasturas y las aguas multicolor. Descubre cerros y llanuras con la huella del caballo fiel de las faenas vespertinas. Disfruta sonidos y sabores de ambrosía, mitos y leyendas que se entretejen en paisajes inigualables. Esta es la ruta del embrujo llanero. Bienvenidos al Meta.
Donde encontrarás música, folclore, flora, fauna, una gran biodiversidad, pero también su gente amable, su gente amorosa, con todos los productos de nuestra tierra llanera.
El Meta me fascinó, me quedé aquí echando raíces. Es un mar verde, eso es lo que más me gustó, y la abundancia de agua, el suelo, el bosque. También que aquí en esta tierra se puede sembrar, producir durante todo el año.
Conéctate con la naturaleza, sus maravillosos paisajes. Vive y siente la cultura llanera y disfruta al máximo de productos únicos que brotan de esta tierra. El Meta, despensa agrícola colombiana, labrada por familias devotas a su tierra que se unen para impulsar el campo.
Junto con la red de abastecimiento del Meta, donde somos alrededor de 25 asociaciones, 550 familias productoras de la región, tenemos canales de venta como lo son los mercados campesinos, como tenemos la red de abastecimiento, que es nuestra plataforma digital para venta de productos a nivel nacional.
Ya tenemos nuestro logo, nuestras redes sociales, que es Facebook, Instagram, nuestra página web, nuestro empaque y etiquetado para nuestros productos. Y todo esto es muy importante porque estamos trabajando para tener una marca propia.
Lo que buscamos es hacer el acercamiento con el turista para que conozcan de cerca nuestros procesos, para que se enamoren también del campo, de lo que hacemos con tanto amor y con esfuerzo.
Las familias del Meta te esperan para compartir lo mejor de su tierra. Te invitamos a vivir experiencias únicas en la ruta del embrujo llanero, tierras fértiles, riqueza cultural, deporte extremo, gran biodiversidad y agroturismo. Te esperamos.
Viajar es mi pasión. Me gusta vivir experiencias que me conecten con la naturaleza y mi cultura. Me han hablado de la ruta del café. ¡Allá vamos! En Chanchamayo encontrarás unas cataratas maravillosas. Luego de una caminata podrás sentir la conexión con la naturaleza y sus increíbles paisajes. También podrás conocer cómo se cosechan los frutos que produce esta zona. Y al final del día, disfrutar de uno de los más exquisitos cafés del mundo. Las agricultoras y agricultores son personas muy acogedoras y te enseñan cómo se cultiva la tierra. Realizar esta actividad es una bonita experiencia y te ayuda a comprender la importancia de esta labor.
C'était vraiment une super expérience que de passer quelques jours au fond de Madalena. On a rencontré des gens extraordinaires, on a été très bien accueillis et on a profité d'un lieu superbe.
La pandemia golpeó mucho a estas personas y a raíz de esto buscaron nuevas formas de promocionar sus productos y servicios. Hoy, ellas y ellos usan las herramientas digitales y redes sociales para mejorar sus ingresos.
Cuando las personas conocen todo lo que hay detrás del café, le dan un valor diferente, lo toman como algo espiritual. Y lo que hacemos en la Chacra de Dago es una agricultura espiritual y lo que tratamos de hacer es darle a las personas una experiencia espiritual.
Este viaje fue increíble. Conocí lugares y paisajes hermosos. Compartí con las agricultoras y los agricultores. Disfruté de deliciosos platos, entre muchas otras experiencias maravillosas. Chanchamayo y su gente son lo máximo. De hecho, que voy a regresar.
El Sendero del Cacao está ubicado en el municipio de San Francisco de Macorís, principal zona de producción de este fruto en la República Dominicana. Este proyecto permite al turista entrar en contacto con el proceso de producción del cacao, desde su siembra y recolección hasta el proceso de fermentación, secado y elaboración del delicioso chocolate, para lo cual ha establecido una exitosa estrategia de marketing digital.
El Sendero del Cacao consiste en hacer una demostración exhaustiva de todas las etapas y procesos por donde pasan las almendras del cacao desde la germinación, para dar a conocer el desarrollo sostenible del sector agropecuario, evidenciando las bondades del cacao. El impacto positivo que ha provocado la expansión de lo que es el Sendero del Cacao a partir de las redes sociales es sumamente gigantesco, debido a que por medio de las redes sociales tú tienes el planeta al cual tú te le puedes dirigir en términos de publicidad y llegar hasta ello.
Esta experiencia es la que FAO pretende replicar en el municipio de Las Galeras, provincia de Samaná, junto al Consejo de Turismo Galeras por el Desarrollo Sostenible, Contugal, en apoyo a los más de 14.000 habitantes de esta comunidad, cuya principal actividad económica es la agricultura, la pesca y el turismo. La vinculación de los pequeños productores de las galeras a nuevos mercados incluye la incorporación de modelos de negocios basados en un sistema de circuito que los acerquen directamente con los hoteles, restaurantes y balnearios de este municipio costero, que ha sido reconocido como el primer destino turístico del mundo responsable con la biodiversidad.
Incorporar de manera sistemática a todos estos productores en un sistema organizado que puedan tener acceso a otros mercados, no solamente le va a brindar poder colocar a mejor precio los productos, sino colocar más productos, porque la gente va a tener oportunidad de saber lo que se está produciendo en las galeras y en qué fecha esa producción puede estar disponible.
A través de Contugal se establecerán plataformas digitales que permitirán a las asociaciones de pescadores, agricultores y artesanos promover sus productos en tiempo real, asegurando mejores mercados y precios.
Fabricamos queso de hoja, el mejor queso de la región, lo hacemos aquí. Este negocio nosotros, lo iniciaron mis padres antes de yo nacer y se han venido sustentando con eso. Hacemos una producción diaria de 100 libras, 150 más o menos. Nosotros recibimos pedidos por vía de teléfono, WhatsApp, y lo distribuimos a las personas que vienen y a los negocios de la comunidad.
La ruta hacia un turismo rural digital en las galeras llevará a esta región a un turismo más inclusivo y sostenible que cambiará las condiciones de vida de sus habitantes y de su entorno.
Bienvenidos y bienvenidas al encuentro virtual de 1000 aldeas digitales.
Welcome to the online meeting of 1,000 digital villages, the initiative of the Food and Agriculture Organization that supports the digital transformation of the rural world in Latin America and the Caribbean. I'm Mauricio Mireles, and we are going to be hosting this event. Feel free to follow us through our social media, YouTube, Facebook,
Aldeas digitales. Además, pueden enviarnos preguntas y comentarios en el
and Mila.
en Twitter.
And also comment and use the hashtag 1000 digital villages. We started with a number of events that have had a huge impact globally. That's right, Mauricio. As a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, the development indicators for Latin America and the Caribbean have had a huge impact. Just to go over some of the figures that we have seen on the video that come from ICLAC, we have seen an increase in poverty of over 13.8%. Also, we have seen how in rural areas poverty has increased even more, and that the participation of women in the world of labor has gone back to the reality 18 years ago. We have 3.1 million children at risk of dropping out of school, and according to the latest report of FAO in terms of food security, there are 60 million people in Latin America and the Caribbean that are suffering hunger. As you can see, there are several consequences that are severe, and on top of that, we need to add the consequences of climate change. All of this have led us to find solutions that would allow us to put a stop to the slowdown of development in Latin America and the Caribbean, and we have found in information technology a very powerful tool. That is why we are here, because a year ago we launched the initiative 1000 Digital Villages, and we want to go over its a journey with 14 countries that have created 52 projects in 110 communities in the region. Join us to take a look at a video that shows some of the initiatives.
Mil Aldeas Digitales
1000 Digital Villages is the initiative of the UN Organization for Food and Agriculture, FAO, that supports the digital transformation of the rural world in Latin America and the Caribbean. Throughout the process, we have created a digital network that matches productive projects, tourism, entrepreneurship, training, to promote and boost the digital economies in the region. 1000 Digital Villages has supported 52 projects in 14 countries, covering 105 villages with the participation of over 3,000 producers in the network. Each point, each byte opens up two different ways of production, markets, and experiences promoted by young men and women who are the strength of the digital transformation of the rural world. Several families in the indigenous territory of Maleco in Costa Rica are already part of the virtual e-commerce platform, and now they are offering their products to different audiences that are interested in getting to know the village, and the community of Rio Celeste has increased its commerce because now connectivity has increased as well. And in Junquilla, the tourism initiative invites using different platforms to people to get to visit them and to get to know the colors and flavors of this region of the Ecuador. The increasing opportunities of the digital transformation in the rural world has made it possible to have in the Amazon in Ecuador the community of Napo to promote the farming of chacras in a very important process of passing along this knowledge to younger generations on top of preserving the agrobiodiversity of over 100 native species. In the north of the region of Choco, 8 local communities have opened up the ecotouristic corridor, and thanks to connectivity and to different platforms, their proposal is available from Colombia to different places of the world. Coffee and cocoa beans, which are products of our region, are now available in different markets ranging from Peru to Dominican Republic. The community of Chantamayo in Peru recreates the route of coffee, integrating productivity and tourism, inviting visitors to ceremonies around such an important product for the local lives. And in San Francisco of Nacoris in Dominican Republic, we go to the route of cocoa bean from growing to chocolate with a productive process that guarantees the high quality of this noble product. Each of these experiences is another point of the network that links places, products, communities, and landscapes that show the world the region of Latin America and the Caribbean. Through the initiative 1000 Digital Villages of the Organization of the United Nations for Food and Agriculture, FAO.
¿Y qué tal después de este recorrido?
And after this journey, don't you feel like traveling and travel all over Latin America and the Caribbean? Yes, definitely, Milen. How would I not want to do tourism and to get to know the traditional productive processes in the region? But let's go back to the beginning of 1000 Digital Villages. It was precisely in our headquarters in Rome where this initiative was created. That is why we're very happy to hear the words of Máximo Torero, senior economist, lead economist of the UN Organization for Food and Agriculture. The floor is yours.
Good morning. My name is Máximo Torero, the Chief Economist of FAO. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 1000 Digital Villages in Latin America and the Caribbean. The world, as all of you know, is in a very difficult situation today. All our indicators are saying that we are far from achieving the Zero Hunger Challenge in 2030. Malnutrition is on its rise, hunger is on its rise, not only because of the key drivers, climate change, slowdowns and downturns, and conflict, but also because of the exacerbation of the war in Ukraine. But in this complex environment, we have to be positive and we need to bring solutions that allow us to do the agri-food system transformation that we need. Digital technologies have a key role to play in our efforts to make agri-food systems more efficient, more inclusive, and more resilient and more sustainable. Digital innovation has capabilities to bridge the rural divide, increases the resilience of rural areas and empower youth and women to access information, technology, and markets. But it's essential that we don't end in a situation where the acceleration of digital technologies access will be exclusive and not inclusive. So we need to develop and design access to digital technologies in such a way that is also inclusive, especially of our smallholder producers, which are the ones that really need to use it to be able to do precision farming. They are the ones that have the lowest level of resources and for which this is central. FAO has a unique ability to bring and to bridge this divide and to create this inclusive process. We have introduced a number of initiatives that help us to translate this vision into concrete support to delivery to our member countries. This includes the One Digital Villages initiative that FAO currently is developing across the world. The initiative aims to convert villages across the world into digital hubs to support the acceleration of rural transformation and reduce the digital gap. This is to make it inclusive, including the gender and rural divide. From the perspective of agricultural production, it refers to the e-agriculture, which focus on improving the productivity by using ICTs and relevant digital solutions, for example, climate-smart agriculture, precision agriculture, and intelligent facility management of agriculture. We also not only look at the e-agriculture, but also from the perspective of the farmer lives, we refer to the digital farmer services, which focuses on how to enhance farmers' accessibility to different kinds of social and economic services in terms of financial services, which are so important in agriculture and where there is a significant gap and exclusion, also to social protection programs and to employment. Remember, automation, which is based on digital technologies, can and requires to have a specific set of skills in human capital, and that's where we need to work. We also need to build capacities. And finally, from the perspective of the village, it refers to the digital services to support rural transformation, which focus on how to enhance the delivery of public services on health, education, jobs, welfare, tourism, and ecotourism and agritourism. These alternatives could create more resilience by offering new job opportunities to rural farmers. Digital villages and rural tourism can be engines to increase resilience and diversify incomes of farmers and to build back better. And they are, of course, gender inclusive. FAO is working with many partners to develop rural digital inclusion initiatives on the ground, aiming to bring innovation much closer to the needs of small-scale farmers through enabling policies, enhancing capabilities, increasing affordability, and improving infrastructure. Now, every region of FAO, we have started building the grounds for its implementation of the 1000 digital villages. This makes the first step to align our efforts together with the governments so that these are country-driven and country-led initiatives, but will take advantage of the existing technologies. In Europe and Central Asia, for example, FAO is developing a digital village readiness assessment to identify the villages that have the best potential to be transformed into the digital villages model of FAO. The tool will be piloted with country offices and will strengthen the agricultural strategy work, and it will provide an assessment and a methodology for rural areas, going beyond the agricultural sector. In Africa, we already have been implementing digital villages. 7 countries have been selected to be part of the pilot in Africa. FAO has conducted scoping assessments on the implementation of the initiative, and 30 villages or clusters of villages have been selected. In Asia, pilot activities are underway already in 10 countries in 2021, and FAO is developing a digital villages platform where over 100 digital villages will be designated for potential development and government support, to be officially launched the 27th of June of 2022. Looking at Latin America and the Caribbean, I am very delighted to say that the region has really taken that initiative. The 1,000 digital villages benefits 52 villages oriented towards agrotourism, located in 14 countries in the region: Belize, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Ecuador, Grenada, Guatemala, Jamaica, Nicaragua, Peru, Dominican Republic, Saint Kitts and Nevis, and Venezuela. 2022 has also seen the organization of an online course on audiovisual tools for digital marketing, which registered 233 participants. The course aims to provide knowledge about the production of videos for social networks and web pages, enabling better dissemination and promotion of tourism ventures. Building on this, the initiative is kickstarting a virtual community this month. The purpose is to create a space in which members of rural tourism experiences generate contact with each other, sharing examples of success digitalization implemented in their enterprise, sharing useful information on national and local programs that can support their tourism businesses, among others. Learning from each other is central. Ladies and gentlemen, digital technologies are not a panacea, but they are a very important instrument and tool that could drive and force us towards transforming our agri-food systems in a more efficient manner. They could help to reduce the different market failures that we face. They could help to increase the precision in which farmers produce. They could help to increase services delivery to the villages, and they could help to diversify incomes through ecotourism and agrotourism, increasing resilience of our farmers. The Digital Village Initiative can help bridge the rural digital gap and accelerate the process towards a more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable agri-food systems for better production, better nutrition, better environment, and especially better life for all, leaving no one behind. Thank you for today's discussions, which is essential to the delivery and upscaling of the Digital Villages Initiative in this region. And I hope you can have a very active discussion and that you can come up with solutions that could help us to accelerate this process. So thank you very much again, and I hope you have a great workshop today.
Now we would like to invite our colleague Jimena Quesada for her to share with us about the development of this initiative. Jimena, the floor is yours. Thank you so much, Milen. First of all, I would like to greet everyone who is following this activity online. We are going to briefly summarize what the first year of 1,000 digital villages has been in the region. As many of you know, in the region, the initiative was created on the basis of different initiatives of rural tourism that were based on the agri-food systems and rural villages. So the first step in this context was to call and invite all the countries in the region to participate of this initiative, and why not of this challenging adventure. To this calling, as it was mentioned by Maximo, please help me out with the slides. As Maximo said, recently 14 countries answered to the calling, involving 110 villages with 52 different entrepreneurships of rural agritourism. So with a number of countries, we created a number of initiatives throughout the first year, but we would like to highlight 3 different initiatives. The first one The first initiative was the diagnosis and the assessment of digital priorities in the different villages and territories, aiming at acknowledging the local reality in terms of the digital world. Secondly, there was a training course to produce videos for digital marketing with young people and also with basic devices that they had available to promote their entrepreneurships. And the third activity that we are going to highlight, which is undergoing, is a virtual network of youth that are participants of the entrepreneurships that we would like to connect among countries and among different entrepreneurships to share learnings and to share experiences throughout the different activities that have been carried out and throughout the diagnosis. There are some elements that we would like to highlight and take into account, especially when we work with family farming and micro and small rural businesses. First of all, the most important element is that the links and the interactions with the institutionality of the digital world are weak. So the villages and the entrepreneurships are connected in a very weak manner. Almost 70% of the entrepreneurship had no contact whatsoever with agents of the digital world or had only sporadic contact. And at the local level, we were able to see that there are efforts in place. Yes, however, these efforts are in silos with a low level of coordination, which ends up generating a leak of digital energy, as we call it. The efforts in general are concentrated in the urban areas. With that, we see a new rural-urban gap coming along, and without the right policies in place, it will only grow bigger. Therefore, we need to create bridges towards rural areas and rural entrepreneurships. The second element is that there is a gap between the digital offer and the local capabilities, which means that when we talk about digitalization of the agriculture, we think about highly sophisticated technologies. We think about precision farming, telemetrics, IoT, etc., etc. And yes, that is the horizon, that is the way to go. However, the local reality shows that over 70% of people don't have access to 3G and higher level networks. Almost 80% of them only use very basic applications, WhatsApp, Facebook, and maybe websites. And 80% of them have devices that are way too basic for this. The third element has to do with a positive point, which is that the digital innovation is happening, which is a paradox in spite of the major difficulties and gaps that we were able to see. The innovations are still happening. Over 90% of entrepreneurships are using some sort of digital technology. Even though it is basic, they are still using it. Women and young people are leading the way. They are the ones moving digitalization onwards to the entrepreneurships. Therefore, we already have the future territorial digital managers.
Que ver con el sector privado. El sector privado es un socio clave para extender la digitalización rural. Sin embargo, hoy día, en la actualidad, los puntos de encuentro son aún débiles y fragmentados. El lado positivo es que encontramos que casi un 30% de los emprendimientos tienen algún grado de conocimiento de agentes privados, ¿no?, del mundo digital. Y fíjense que un 20%, a pesar de no tener apoyo y las dificultades, han gestado algún tipo de acuerdo. Un ejemplo que ha sido muy interesante, ha alumbrado camino de colaboración, es el proyecto Renacer en Colombia en el departamento de Huila. Allí, liderado por Juan Valdés y en colaboración con la Federación de Cafeteros, Microsoft, el municipio de Gigante, FAO y otros actores,
FAO and other stakeholders that have gotten together to collaborate to bring forth connectivity and connectivity with a purpose to the different territories and the digital abilities for a set of young people where the objective is to
colaboración de distintos agentes, público, privado, cooperación, etc. En síntesis, tenemos aldea y emprendimiento.
Today, we've got some rural entrepreneurship.
Vinculación con los agentes del mundo digital. Se evidencia una brecha entre la oferta.
So we've got a gap between the local capabilities, and the positive things is that there is an effort and willingness not to be left aside. And they're leading and they're agents in the private sector that, yes, they've got the willingness to participate and to share efforts. So that's why that there are some problems, but we also have some opportunities. How can we continue? 3 challenges. We need to connect not only internet. To connect is to set the bridges towards the territories and the rural villages. And we cannot skip stages, and we also need to generate incentives so men and women will play an important role. How can we do this? We have been working on the development and adaptation of this concept of hub or a digital ecosystem to the rural territories. And during the next month, we have been starting a new job that is called the confirmation of digital territorial confirmation at a subnational level. This is an effort that we have been developing at NEFRE, and also this is something that to create efforts to be connected at a territory level. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Please come and sit with us. And well, to talk about the progresses during these 3 years, would like to add Eduardo Ramirez. He is the coordinator of this initiative in the region. It is a pleasure to have you with us. Good morning, everyone, and in the social media. That is wonderful. Eduardo, tell me, how are you forecasting the new steps in the 1,000 digital villages? Well, the first year was quite productive, and Jimena showed us big, but the future challenges are huge because we need to reach to more countries and to more countries with this idea of having hubs or the spaces for the digital development at a territory level. This development of the digitalization, these ecosystems, and by fulfilling with all this, we've got the reinforcements of the capabilities and the systems of everything. So we are trying to reach these capabilities to provide services and to make this effort possible. And the information of the networks by different players at a national or international level, and the capability of generating the strategies that will set these initiatives towards the future as adding value that will help the rural territories. Thank you, Eduardo. Of course, this is a huge challenge, but please tell me, Jimena, what has really caught your attention on this? Well, this is something that I said in the presentation, and this is that people that is making huge efforts, and it is part of the digitalization. And of course, besides all of the challenges that the literacy is showing, and somehow it was demonstrated with this experience that we had throughout this year, there are so many examples. We could see that in some videos, and also in Costa Rica, the cultural center that belongs to the Maleco peoples in the La Hijuela area. They're using Facebook to give visibility to their culture and to promote it. This is something that has a lot of difficulties, and in Cuba, Vista Hermosa lot is also with lots of problems. They manage that in area of Huracanao, they have created some Facebook groups in order to maintain the purchase of or the production of cheese and to solve whatever the impacts of the pandemic brought. And also they are trying to resist all of these adverse scenarios, and also the digitalization to help to overcome all of this. Well, Eduardo, thank you. And Jimena, thank you very much. So, Eduardo, what are we waiting to reach the 33 countries? Well, it depends on many things, but there are 3 or 4 elements that we are able to identify, and we are doing our best for this to happen in the next years. Well, first of all, we are looking for 2 pilot initiatives, and because they're trying to intervene in this space and the cooperation, and we're launching this idea in Ecuador. And we wanted to take some experiences in Colombia, the same thing in Huila. We are going to start. Jimena was showing an effort of a territory hub with those lessons. We just want to launch this idea to the rest of the country. So what do we need to have? Well, we need to have the private players to involve, to call private players to be part of this idea. We need to make the governments to be part, to launch public policies and funding and initiatives in the rural territories that will help digitalization. We need to find the different experiences that we have seen in videos, and Jimena already mentioned them. There are lots of experiences that are happening in the rural sector, and we need to make it visible. And last but not least, FAO wants to build in each one of the countries. We want to provide the service. We want to identify the partners in the private sector to be part of this project that is called 1000 Digital Villages. And thank you, Jimena. Thank you, Eduardo. Best of lucks. And I'm going to leave this segment, and I will come back with Milen. Yes, because we would like to know all of the different shadows that this experience of digital transformation may have. So we're going to be talking to different players with different projects, the initiatives of digital transformation. And for that, we're going to be talking with the person in charge of FAO Ecuador. So Agustin Zimmerman, how are you? Welcome. Good morning, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be part of this anniversary of the Digital Villages initiative. Well, I just wanted to tell you how we have generated and we have worked under the framework of this initiative in Ecuador. First of all, what I wanted to say is that the initiative started in the middle of the pandemic. So it was a tool that was very important here in Ecuador in order to generate these changes in the management model out of different initiatives that were implemented, for instance, in the area of rural tourism. And the tool of the different digital villages was very important to support the different entrepreneurship, and also to have an economic reactivation. Many of these initiatives, they already existed. So they had or they were looking for the promotion of the local tourism in some areas of foreign tourism. All of the sudden, because of the pandemic, it changed, and all of the incomes because of this were down. And so we have to look for new opportunities to promote local tourism at a moment where people were looking for this possibility to have experiences at an open space, to include everything that has to do with the hygienic measures. And through this initiative of the digital villages here in Ecuador, we have been working by having this mechanism, the local marketing, to visualize the touristic offer that was set and it was working. Another aspect that is very important here, and we saw in the presentation of Jimena here in Ecuador, the digital gaps is one of the realities. And in spite of this, we notice, especially for young men and women, this drive of trying to have this digitalization. One of the things that we would like to launch, and we are helping, is the creation of this digital hub by means of a project here in Ecuador, which is a project that is financed by the European Union of the landscapes of the Andes. So we need to reinforce the digital skills, especially for young people, and we are trying to move forward with these experiences. So altogether, that we closed an agreement with Microsoft to train 243 trainers as part of the program of Skills for the Future. So this alliance, Eduardo mentioned that one of the key things and the main challenges to move forward in terms of digitalization is to involve the private sector. I believe that we need to put lots of efforts, and the gaps in each one of the countries are the ones that we've got, and the private sector needs to be part in order to close or to help to close that gap. The private sector is going to be part if they find a profitability and if they find the right way. So FAO has an important role to play, as Max was saying. FAO has the ability of creating the connectivity among the different players. The activities of FAO, they're looking for that. So in this project of landscape of the Andes, we are reinforcing this public and private with as an opportunity to escalate the projects and initiatives that are supported by the government. As key player are the local governments. So we need to involve the local the local governments and also the different localities. The academia is another important player in these initiatives. And in Monterrey, we also made a diagnosis about what is the situation of digitalization and the challenges and opportunities that we may have. I just wanted to mention those progresses, those challenges, those opportunities, and within the framework of the initiatives of the digital villages we have been working here in the Ecuador. I just wanted to say that we are in the four geographic areas, in the coast, in the valley, and also in the Amazonian area. And to close, another important aspect that I wanted to highlight is that the initiative is that it really helped us to launch this focus, because this is also something that is going to be alongside all the sectors and at a level of a country. We've got a portfolio of projects and we want to have some initiatives, and here in Latin America and the Caribbean it is also contributing on that regard. In the case of Ecuador, it also was really helpful, and it is helpful, and we see a lot of perspective in terms of the future. So thank you very much. And thank you. I think it is very interesting what you are mentioning, Agustin. And well, I've got a question for you. What was the contribution of the digitalization to the reinforcement and the trading from the rural area as a product from the rural areas? Well, that's a very good question because what I mentioned before, what was this change with the pandemic, innovation was key.
Una necesidad para la
One
reactivación
important need for the reactivation and also as part of the economical reactivation of entrepreneurs and small farmers by means of a diagnose and by setting the priorities. We have used digital platforms to launch the training. So we innovated with the processes to have the digital tools and to train and to collect information that would allow small farmers
identificar las
to
necesidades
identify the needs of the agri-food chain in a context of pandemic and post-pandemic for the production until the trading. So we were showing, especially in the province of the Napo, which is part of the Amazonas in the Ecuador, and we contributed with many organizations of producers, and they will put the products by means of a commercial platform and to cover one of the main problems of the agriculture in the Ecuador, which is a high level of intermediaries of the pandemic. When we change this reality, it was also an opportunity by trying to be connected to the producers and the local producers to the commerce. I think that this happened in every country, and in Ecuador it was very important. We also created virtual stores where the producers they offer their products and they are able to trade them. So in the end, it was quite positive to have this experience in the areas of improving the trading and to link in a more direct manner the producer with the consumer. And last but not least, the initiative allowed to increase the resilience, which is very important for the rural sector because of the shocks that we have received as part of the pandemic, and by allowing this diversification of the incomes. So I think that is a very important to highlight. Well, Agustin, I know that you've got at least two projects as a part of the digital villages, as you mentioned, in Ecuador. One is the Andean landscape. What else can you tell us about the project? Well, in the project of the landscape from the Andes, as we have discussed it so many times with Eduardo, this is the pilot in which we would like to learn and correct mistakes so that we can move forward in these experiences at a regional level. The landscapes of the Andes is in the center, and also it is one of the areas that needs the most support that Jimena was showing at the beginning in terms of the gaps, because we've got gaps in terms of the digital skills, connectivity, and of course, what we need is investment, public or a private investment. That gap is closed that way, but from FAO, what we can do by means of this project is that the connectivity of the different players that are doing things.
Eso creo que sí nos toca
So
ahí.
I believe that that is something that we need to, of something that we need to do. This is something that FAO knows how to do that, and they do it in a very good manner to connect the communities and the public and private sector, and also to reinforce the connectivity. That is regarding the landscapes from the Andes and the forests and facilities that is being implemented in the Ecuador. In the other experiences that we have been launching, we are in the coast, in the Amazonian area, and also in the mountain areas. So by having the digital reforms of different person and also the youth, the first four facilities is to reinforce the different organizations. And an important component for that reinforcement is to give them tools, digital tools to train them, to give them
digitales
better
y
skills, better digital skills, and
todas las
that's
organizaciones
what
que estamos.
we've got different facilities and all the organizations that are working with us. Thank you very much, Agustin. It was very interesting to work with you. Thank you very much for getting connected, and all our best wishes for Ecuador. And also, we will see you in the next meeting of Digital Villages. Thank you very much, and well, congratulations. I think that this is something, and we need to get connected among us as well. So thank you very much.
Bueno, y no solo la FAO está
Not
preocupada de la...
only the FAO is concerned with the digitalization of the rural world, also in this task, we have our colleagues and friends of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, FIDA, FIDA, and they have been of great support. We want to invite you to hear the greetings of Fabricio Ciani, regional lead economist of FIDA.
Estimado Julio Verdeguer.
Dear Julio Verdeguer and colleagues of FAO and the UN system, dear audience, it's a pleasure for me to greet you from FIDA in Rome. I want to thank you for the invitation to participate in this event that celebrates the first year of the initiative 1000 Digital Villages for Latin America and the Caribbean that has been put in place thanks to collaboration between the FAO and the International Organization for Tourism. We live in a world where the digital is part of our reality, and it used to be said that if it wasn't in the media, it didn't exist. Now we could say that if it isn't online, it doesn't exist. The organizations that work for rural development, as FAO and FIDA, know very well up to what extent the needs of rural areas have been oftentimes neglected, overlooked by the rest of the society, and they have not been met by the public policies either. We are at risk of having this situation once again, and that the digital gap that already exists between rural and urban areas in Latin America and the Caribbean becomes a cliff which is impossible to bridge. The data is concerning. In the region, 67% of the population has access to internet connection. However, 77% of rural households do not have a connection to the network. The digital gap is a delay that we can no longer afford to have. We cannot allow people that live in rural territories to be left digitally disconnected from the rest of the society. This would mean that their rights would be neglected, that they would be second-class citizens. Also, the food security of our societies would be at risk. To close the digital gap is a concrete strategy to accelerate the achievement of the SDGs, which is why initiatives like 1000 Digital Villages are of the highest importance. The organizations that are working with rural populations know that in the digital era, the information technologies and communication technologies are a tool to decrease rural poverty, to increase productivity, to improve access of farmers to the market and financial services, and also create new sources of income and employment, for instance, with rural tourism activities. This has been promoted more and more throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. During the lockdown and mobility restriction period to fight against the disease, the digital tools have given our projects the means to continue working on, and the beneficiaries of the same projects the means to continue to receive technical support and to solve their production. For instance, in Brazil, the projects funded by FIDA put in place a technical support system online through cell phones to communities that are in the middle of the Sertão. In Colombia, thousands of small farmers were able to, thanks to the support given by the project El Campo Emprende, have access to social media to sell their products. In Guatemala and Honduras, FIDA is supporting the digitalization of 166 saving organizations that are already giving online services to their members. transforming the ability to offer financial services that are customized to their needs. We know that all of this is not enough and we want to go even further. Precisely in these weeks, we are working together with the Investment Center of FAO to prepare an action plan for Latin America and the Caribbean that will guide us to accelerate the integration of digital activities in the small farming activities, emphasizing the uh, digital incorporation and their access to those programs that are available for them. A strategy based on promoting digital solutions that are scalable and replicable, using and optimizing already existing resources and establishing strategic partnerships with other organizations that work on this, as the FAO itself, as well as the World Tourism Organization, a strategy that also requires that we fight for public policies that help us close the digital gap between urban and rural areas in the region. Said public policies should aim at offering internet connection, digital devices, and also digital services that are affordable for those that live in rural areas. They should also offer training to improve literacy and also the digital abilities of rural population.
En fin,
Lastly, I am sure that in this effort for closing the digital gap between rural and urban areas in Latin America and the Caribbean, we will meet once again with our colleagues of FAO and other organizations of the UN system, including, of course, our colleagues from the World Tourism Organization. Surely it will be a pleasure to go along this journey together. Thank you so much for your attention.
Y bueno, súper interesante la experiencia ganada
Well,
por nuestros.
it's been a very interesting experience by our colleagues of FIDA. Greetings to them, especially to Fabrizio, who sent us these words from Rome. And through this meeting, we have heard that 1,000 digital villages is possible through the collaboration of a network of agencies, governments, different private sector organizations, and a huge network of communities. It would be impossible to move on towards the digital transformation without the collaborative work of all of us. That is why we have from Colombia, Juan Pablo Ceballos, CEO of the Digital National Agency, which is part of the organization in Colombia. Juan Pablo, good morning. The floor is yours. Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you today to talk about this very important topic. It's a pleasure to have you. And to start with a dialogue, what has been the orientation of the public policies in terms of the digitalization of the rural world in Colombia?
Básicamente Colombia.
Well, basically, Colombia has been in a journey, through a digital transformation and different scopes of action, and the rural world is part of that as well. From the National Development Plan that basically sets the time frame from 2018 to 2022, very important public policies were put in place for the digital transformation of the rural areas and the Colombian countryside. And basically, this National Development Plan is based on 5 very important components, of which several people that have spoken before me have spoken. But it's interesting to mention the issue of connectivity and access. Colombia, due to its geography, has major challenges and difficulties to establish and to promote connection and access. However, major progress has been done when it comes to offering greater connectivity, understanding from public policies that connectivity and access are universal leverages of knowledge, access, and opportunities. The second pillar that has been worked on from the public policies has been the use and empowerment. All of this was a very special approach for the rural world in Colombia. Over here, we see that there are still major knowledge imbalances that should be closed if we want to promote digital literacy. So we have made progress to create this type of public policies. One key element has to do with the availability of technology. Without that, it would be impossible to promote the first two elements, of course, connectivity and access, and ownership and empowerment. So the availability of technology is a key element in order to achieve access and interaction between the rural world and the different entities of the government, and also between different private parties that are part of this transformation process. Now, the creation of ecosystem of solutions and data, we believe is something that the public policy needs to promote, because without data, it's impossible to make decisions. Without data, we don't have access to other mechanisms of supply and demand in the rural areas. And lastly, another pillar of the public policies has been the incorporation of concepts and cases of use that are suitable for the creation of smart territories. And this is where the journey of the public policy aims at, in the specific implementation, in the concrete implementation of solutions of IoT, and also solutions of sustainable farming in the rural areas of Colombia. So, in summary, the five elements are part of the portfolio of public policies that Colombia has put in place. Thank you so much, Juan Pablo. Can you please let us know more specifically what has been the experience of the implementation of services towards the rural area?
Colombia ha venido
Well, Colombia has been implementing throughout the digital transformation policy what we call the citizens digital services, with the purpose of reaching out to communities with a state that is more efficient, more transparent, that has interactions that
más llevadera,
are
digámoslo.
done in a more user-friendly way from the perspective of how close they are to the communities. So what Colombia has been trying to do is to gain capillarity and to massively offer digital services for the citizens. And the challenge now is to reach out to rural areas. For that, the National Digital Agency is working on the implementation of a platform called My Rural Registry, or My Rural ID, with the purpose of, first of all, identifying the farmers in rural areas to create a baseline, first of all. And as I said it earlier, with data, with the creation of an ecosystem of technological solutions to offer to them the digital services for citizens. Now, if the supply and demand of the public sector in Colombia is made available for them and closely related to the needs of the rural areas, that means that we have three different digital services for citizens that are highly available. First of all, we have interoperability, without which the sources of information would not be able to share information among them. Secondly, we have the citizens digital folder, where producers have access to specific information that's key for their businesses, and they are also able to hold e-documents, digital documents regarding their interactions with the Colombian state. And the last digital service for citizens is the authentication, which aims at becoming the single point of access for all producers and for all smaller farmers in Colombia. So that is how we are moving along in the implementation of the digital services for citizens, and it is done on a stage-by-stage basis, but we're moving along. We still have a long way to go, but these are the three digital services for citizens that are in place, that are available for the population in Colombia. Juan Pablo, it's very interesting what you're saying. So one last question for you. In relation to the articulation of the digital transformation of the rural world that you mentioned, what is the role of the private sector in all of this?
Yo creo que es un actor.
Well, I think the private sector is a very important stakeholder. It was mentioned already by our colleague of FIDA and also in the previous presentations. I believe that it plays a role of making the process more dynamic. I think the private sector can make a bet on the rural transformation and to accelerate it. In Colombia, at least, because of the gaps that we have had, that we've been working on regarding connectivity, the private sector has helped a lot and it has supported the government to offer technological solutions for the last mile that could be scalable and that allow the massification of access to connectivity. So definitely the private sector is a huge actor in terms of making this transformation more dynamic. Also from the private perspective, considering the creation of technological solutions for the smaller farmers and for the rural areas overall, they have a key role to play. So joining efforts is key to be able to promote public policies that are always defined with the best intentions, but without players like in the private sector, it would be very difficult to put in place all of this with all of the burden on the public sector, of course. With that, the private sector has a key role to play.
Juan Pablo, ¿sí?
Sí, no, aquí estoy.
Yes, thank you so much, Juan Pablo. Thank you so much. I think there is a small delay, but thank you so much, Juan Pablo. We are happy to have you in the following activities. Thank you so much. Yes, a pleasure. And greetings and thank you to FAO and the entire team. Thank you, Juan Pablo. See you soon. Well, as you all know, the connectivity is the key, is the first step towards the digital transformation. And regarding this, there are private sector stakeholders that are creating a route to add points to the network. Let's hear from Germán Atrada, Director of the Connectivity Initiative of Microsoft for LATAM.
Iniciativa de conectividad de Microsoft para
The
América Latina.
Connectivity Initiative of Microsoft for Latin America, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. I thank you so much for the invitation, Eduardo, and the team, but I thank you even more for the collaboration that we have had with FAO in the latest years that has allowed us to get to the more isolated places of Colombia and Latin America with a message of digital transformation and a message of digitalization of the countryside, which at this moment is so important that it can actually make a difference, not only for major producers, but also and especially for smaller farmers that are our objective target, that we believe that is with them where the highest potential is for the economies and for the development of the region overall. I'd like to start by telling you about this initiative that we are working on, that we have put in place in the region and in the world from 5 years ago. We have a clear goal to connect 40 million people all over the world. And this goal is a goal which is very challenging, is an objective that pushes us to think outside the box, that pushes us to engage in partnerships with different stakeholders of the civil society, and also different stakeholders with which Microsoft usually wouldn't have thought that we could have a partnership with. For instance, a partnership with FAO for us is very special. And it has been transformational in the way how we reach out to the countryside and in the way in which how we think that digital transformation needs to take place. So this initiative, as I said it earlier, has the objective of reaching 40 million people Especially in Latin America, we have the objective of connecting 25 million people by 2025. And for us, as it was mentioned earlier, it has been key to engage in partnerships. We do not believe that such a huge challenge can be obtained without creating major partnerships as the ones that we have had, especially with the FAO. For us, there are three important points that we want to work on or that we would like to emphasize in order to promote digitalization. First of all, farming, because we think that there is huge potential. Secondly, education, where the pandemic proved that we needed to make an extra effort to bring along connectivity and to offer connectivity to students, teachers, schools, where it was needed the most throughout the midst of the pandemic. And the third point is telemedicine or medical appointments online in general that could enjoy the benefit of any type of implementation of connectivity overall in the rural areas. For us, we have sought or we have decided to call this initiative, especially in Latin America, connectivity with a purpose. We think that the purpose is the added value that we may bring the final and the end users, and thanks to that they will obtain the greatest benefit. If we obtain connectivity, without adding value, well, it doesn't make any sense because we are not actually having an impact. We are not obtaining the transformation that we want to obtain. So, having said that, having mentioned about this initiative, I'd like to go back to what we've been doing so far with FAO ever since we became involved in their 1,000 Digital Villages project. From the first time, we felt that it was a right match with all of our objectives, with all of our initiatives. We were talking with Eduardo's team and we understood that definitely our objectives were matching, and at the same time, our objectives were complementary to one another, which is what makes it possible for us to have an exponential impact. If we were not joining efforts, I don't think a project like this one with the coffee sector would have had the impact that it's having right now. So we think that the partnerships are very important. We think that the private sector has a lot to offer. We think that if we have the right incentives in place, if we have the right partners in place, we will definitely achieve the transformation of the lives of people that need it the most, and that actually ends up being our objective. I hope that this video was helpful and encouraging for you to create more partnerships and to continue working to transform the lives of people. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Agradecemos enormemente las
We
palabras.
want to thank the words of Germán Otarola, and as you all know, for the projects to be sustainable and to grow stronger, we need to improve the digital abilities of people.
Este primer año ha sido desarrollar y fortalecer los procesos de infoalfabetización, especialmente de
So the
jóvenes.
most important thing during this year is to have the digitalization for the youth. So we've got this video, and the added value is that it was developed by young people that are linked to this video, and they did it with their own smartphones. So this is in terms of the context of closing their training courses. And well, the invitation is there. Granada. Peru. Dominican Republic. San Cristóbal and Nieves. Guatemala. Chile. Ecuador. Venezuela.
Como hemos visto, estos jóvenes han
As we have seen, these young people, they have improved their capabilities and also they are activating in their social media. So it is very interesting that when a content reach to the network, then the protection has no limits, and that content, that experience, that product can take our businesses to where we don't even think it was possible. So to talk about the possibilities of the digital network, we would like to invite Rodrigo Castañeda. He is a representative of FAO in Dominican Republic, so he can teach us some of the projects that they are executing over there. Rodrigo, we know that there is some news that may motivate our participants.
Rodrigo, ¿nos escucha?
Rodrigo, can you hear us? We're just trying to fix Rodrigo's audio. Now, can you hear me? Yes, I believe we do. Okay, then. I had a digitalization problem with my computer. I'm so sorry. Well, listen, this is just a reflection of what you are discussing here, because that is a challenge to include the producers and the different communities to this important initiative. And as I was saying, I'm very happy, I'm very helpful for this invitation, and to tell you in a few words what it meant for Dominican Republic, the initiative of digital villages. And as a summary, what created this initiative is to find an opportunity to introduce in the political agenda the topic of a sustainable and a good tourism focus on the youth and also women. As Jimena said, to be able to connect this tourism, this important tourism with the rural areas and the agricultural areas and the youth. I would like to share with you a brief presentation if my computer allows me.
Me dicen si es que se ve, por favor.
Please let me know if you can see it. Yes, we can.
Perfecto.
Okay, then.
¿Se ven grandes? Ahí está. Creo que sí.
Can you see it now? I hope you can. Okay. Okay, we've got the view that you've got as a presenter.
Presentador, no la de presentación. A ver.
We've got the view as a presenter and not as a presentation. I don't know if you can see it now. You've got two screens, so please, someone is coming to help me. I believe that we can see it. It's okay. Okay. The most important thing is that we can hear you.
No sé si logran verlo ahí.
Can you hear it now? Can you see it now? Yes, we can. Okay, as I was saying, I'm going to tell you what it represents for Dominican Republic to work with the digitalization topic and the tourism and agritourism. This started with 4 paths for rural tourism that were started in Dominican Republic with young people and also with women. And we associated this to products, so agricultural products, and they've got a potential to be a touristic attraction. And also we needed to reinforce that and to massify them. So we started with the honey that was associated to a path that was already consolidated. And also we worked with a group of fishermen that were trying to increase their supply in a touristic area. And the same thing we did with an ecotourism with a locality in Laguna de Oviedo in Pedernales with a cooperation organization that produced the macadamia, as it is some sort of a nut that as it is known in Latin America. But also we're having an alternative path associated to some destinations that are already massive, and then they've got internal visitors, and we wanted to give them some other sort of alternative. And the digital topic, the digital platform, and the digital instruments were very, very helpful. And among other things, we wanted to do a digital marketing to promote their experiences, to bring more people, to show to more people the touristic destination that they are representing, to reinforce their institution and to offer some sort of different facilities to have online payment, for instance. It had a very important effect because since it was there were young people and also young women, it was very attractive. This is an instrument. As you all know, agriculture is not the most attractive things for youth, but when we mix this with the technology, then they feel very, very interested in participating. So in Dominican Republic, we tried to reinforce that initiative, but it also had an effect that was very interesting. It allowed FAO to be part of the touristic circuit, to be part of tourism with a key important areas such as the Ministry of Tourism, the Association of Entrepreneurs in tourism, some ministries that were associated as such, the SMEs, the youth planning, and what allow us is to identify an opportunity, a possibility to have this link in a more corporate manner as a public policy that is associated to these initiatives of the agriculture, of family agriculture in the chain of tourism in the Dominican Republic. As you may understand, this chain of tourism in Dominican Republic is very, very important. We are talking about a contribution of a 20% of the of our gross domestic product. The tourism purchase from the agriculture $900 million per year. Imagine if we are able to move only 1% of those $900 million to the small producers of the family agriculture that can be part of that chain by means of the clean production, the healthier production, digitalization, and all the instruments that FAO is promoting. So with this learning of the digital villages, we generated a new project with internal funds of FAO, plus a contribution that the Ministry of Tourism made with some Spanish donors, the Spanish organization, and we've got pretty much $500,000 to promote this link. And in the end, we were able to create a model of public policies to include young men and women to the chain of tourism. And we're talking about the connecting those territories and those alternative solutions and to an important sector of Dominican Republic as it is the tourism. So as you can see here in this presentation, we've got a working table that with different players since the public areas and also the private ones. And as long as this project is developing, we had a public-private partnership, and this partnership was carried out with the most important association of tourism entrepreneurs, and that is mainly confirmed by the entrepreneurs from Punta Cana, hotels, and those are the motors of the tourism in Dominican Republic. When we established this organization, this partnership by the digital tools and the links with the family agriculture with an offer of a production of a high quality in food that may be offered to tourists, their interest was immediate, and we were able to sign an agreement with this association that is called Azonadores to generate this institutional arrangement, and we already have that agreement. And today we are developing uh, we are trying to connect the small producers with the Hilton Hotel in Santo Domingo and with another restaurant that is associated to that hotel and restaurant, which is called the Outback. And they have identified what are the products they need for their restaurant and their hotels. And we, along with the Ministry of Agriculture and the social protection program, we were able to identify the producers, and they agreed to have some important components, which is the payment as soon as they deliver the merchandise. And that is a problem with the agriculture. So once they deliver the product, the restaurant will pay right away the product. So the idea is to increase that. And that's part of the model. It is a model that what it meant was that Dominican Republic, the government invited FAO to participate in the model of the implementation of a new sector plan in the tourism in a different region, which is in the north, and I'm sorry, in the south area, in Pedernales, and we are going to develop a huge tourism development bigger than Punta Cana, with over a $1 billion, 1.1 $4 billion from here to 10 years. And we're trying to implement the model of this link between the family agriculture with this initiative of the youth with this model that is going to be built in Dominican Republic. So therefore, we're going to be working with this public-private partnership with the companies, and when this mega project in Dominican Republic and the tourism is ready to be implemented, then the agricultural production, the rural territories, the agritourism may be included into that chain of tourism to be connected into the rural territory. It started since the very beginning with the digital villages, and that shows us the path in order to generate this social inclusion in the territories. So thank you very much, everybody, for this opportunity. Rodrigo, thank you very much. Actually, it was an excellent presentation, and also that is showing us an excellent business model. And we really hope that many of the projects that are associated to this initiative will take the same path. Well, thank you, Mauricio. This is an excellent model to take into account and to replicate. Now, let's see what's happening in the South Cone. So, Antonieta Chacano, she is in charge of the planning and monitoring in FAO Chile. So, Antonieta, how are you?
Buenas tardes ya a
Good
todos y a
morning. I'm sorry. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to greet you from FAO Chile. I'm going to share my screen. If you could wait for me just a second.
presentarles.
So with that, I will be able to present.
Okay. ¿La están viendo?
All right. Can you see me? Yes, we can. Okay. I'm going to tell you what are we doing with this initiative of FAO Chile. Can you hear me right? Yes, we can. Alrighty. So I just wanted to tell you that since 2021, we started with a diagnosis study in 2 regions of Chile. As you can see, those are 2 different areas, one in the north of Chile, in the area of Colchane, and the other one is in the south, in the Araucanía region, in Melipeuco.
Okay. Un momento que se me pegó un poco.
Just a second.
Okay. En este diagnóstico.
Okay, in this diagnose that we called phase 1, what we did is to set the main features of the different players that were working in digitalization and rural tourism. We identified around 70 players, key players that are linked to digitalization and rural tourism in the 3 areas that I just mentioned, from the civil society, the private sector, and international organizations. So they were divided according to their level of influence, and we've got a matrix of players, and we identified the key players both at a national level and also an international level.
Dentro de la
Within the identified gaps in this diagnosis, we identified 5 important ones. One that has to do with connectivity, another one that has to do with digital literacy, equipment, contents, and the management system. Mainly in tourism entrepreneurship that are a little bit more developed. This identification of the gaps was made with a study of 2 levels. One was at level of a top-down at a domestic level, and the other one was a bottom-up, and we identified the gaps as a study case in these 3 areas. After identifying the gaps, we were able to identify a working model for the models of this, and we established 4 main stages. The first one is to enable, to understand, to learn, and to adapt. And as a key aspect, to belong to a certain territory, the association and sustainability.
ahora? ¿En qué estamos trabajando ahora?
What are we working on now? Starting in May approximately, we are working on drafting pilot plans, pilot projects, and we are conducting our work to promote or to engage with the new administration that took office this year to disseminate this initiative. And also, we are working to engage in articulation with different key stakeholders of the government. We have met with different undersecretariats, for instance, the Tourism Secretariat, the Agricultural Development Institute, the Undersecretariat of Telecommunication, different regional entities of the government, etc., etc. We are still working on finding private partnerships, but we are working mostly with the different levels of the government. Now, what are the criteria to consider when it comes to selecting the territories that we are working with? First of all, we need to have a facilitator in the territory. In that sense, INDAP plays a key role because it is one of the governmental entities that has the greatest presence spread throughout the territory, at the municipality level at least. Another important factor was that there needs to be a high flow of tourists, and also there needs to be a certain level of maturity in different touristic companies in the territory. The third criterion needs to be the digitalization aspects, for instance, connectivity, digital literacy, equipment, access, and marketing. And the idea would be to move layer by layer, trying to cover these four points that I mentioned earlier, and also to consider the different management processes and also the processes to manage the rural finances. That would be all on my behalf. And I'd like to point out, regarding the work that we are doing to disseminate this initiative with the new administration, is that in the current plan of the government, the digital transformation and digitalization of the territories plan has been set forth as a priority. So we believe that we have good opportunities to try to give greater visibility to this initiative and to engage with key stakeholders. Thank you so much, Antonieta, for this very good presentation, and thank you for the good news that we are receiving from Chile. And we are coming to the end of our meeting. We went from the local to the global, from connectivity to digitalization, with a journey throughout an experience that is just starting and that opens up to new development opportunities. To wrap up, we would like to leave you with the interview that the journalist Sandra Quijano conducted a few days ago to Julio Verdaguer, General Director of AYO and Regional Representative for Latin America and the Caribbean. We are here with Julio Verdaguer, Regional Deputy Director of FAO and Regional Representative for Latin America and the Caribbean. Welcome, Julio. Thank you for attending. Hi, Sandra. How are you? I wanted to start by asking, what are the main challenges that the agricultural world and the rural areas are facing in Latin America and the Caribbean? Well, the difficult thing is that there are multiple challenges. Throughout many decades, the society had always expected from the world of farming to basically produce food when food was needed in the world. Nowadays, the society, and legitimately so, expect from the farming world, of course, that it produces food, but more healthy food, but foods that are done in a sustainable manner without harming the environment. They expect that the farming world makes a contribution towards decreasing the greenhouse emissions to fight against climate change. In Latin America, it is very important the contribution of agriculture to rural poverty, which continues to be very, very high, and also to close the gaps in terms of equality in the rural world in Latin America, because we have huge amounts of people that are part of indigenous and Afro-descendant peoples that live in the worst conditions of marginalization. All the social indicators show that they are doing worse than those that are not necessarily part of indigenous peoples and Afro-descendants. So it's a very complex agenda, and there lies the difficulty and the challenge that we are living right now because we can't say no to any of the demands of the society. In this general framework, what is the importance of the digital transformation to overcome the challenges of said systems in the rural territories? Nowadays, the world overall is moving towards a time when the digital is a key element of all the activities we carry out, privately, publicly, social activities, etc., etc. And if the rural world and the stakeholders of the food system are not a part of this transformation, then the gaps will continue to increase. It is key that we accelerate the processes of digitalization. First of all, because they allow us to close the gaps, right, to create bridges. Nowadays, many farmers and people in the rural areas have difficulties to have access to information and services because they are further away from the cities. The digital closes or eliminates those distances. Secondly, there are major imbalances, for instance, in terms of the information of market prices, and this could be fixed today. Access to technology, technological support, information regarding pests, and so much more. It can be solved through technology. Also, something very important, how to be better prepared for the impacts of the global warming and the climate change, the droughts, rains, and so on and so forth. And nowadays, the different stakeholders in the agricultural world can have access to information which is custom made from the place they live, from the place they are, almost in real time. But to get there takes an effort. Now, in your perspective, what is the role of the private sector, the governments, community organizations, and also development agencies in the consolidation of the digital transformation in the rural world in Latin America and the Caribbean? Well, in terms of the digital, I think that the key role of the public policies are two. First, they need to offer public goods, which means the infrastructures and the services without which there will not be connectivity in the rural world. There is a huge connectivity gap. The percentage of households that live in the countryside in comparison to the cities that have access to internet, the difference is huge. And the government needs to create the conditions and sometimes directly invest so that the connectivity gap decreases. Secondly, we need to improve the quality of education. And I mean girls and boys, children that go to school in rural areas, they have to be able to get an education from the earliest years, as children do in the cities, using the technologies in such a way that we generate a rural society which is already a digital native in terms of the practices and the ability to use the new tools and the new services. This is a key role that the state needs to play. The state also needs to support by means of public policies and many times by means of subsidies the sectors of lower income and also family farmers to give them access to the technologies. It isn't just a matter of the market deciding who has access, who gets to buy a good cell phone, and which company gets to install an antenna. No, it shouldn't only be the market who figures that out. So the state needs to play a key role through good public policies and smart subsidies. The private sector, well, what's happening in the digital world is basically or fundamentally the work of the private sector. And there is a huge difference in this case because in the past, the technologies for farming came from companies with the goal that was basically revolving around farming, producers of machinery, seeds, and so on and so forth. But now there are companies like Amazon, Google, which are not companies that work on agriculture, but those are the companies that are involved. And then we have the situation that we see on a daily basis, which is thousands, literally thousands of entrepreneurs, usually young people, who are creating services and digital solutions, many times at a smaller scale. I was just in Guyana and there was a trade show of smaller companies. So many of them were offering digital solutions, right? They were selling, buying, informing people, and all the small companies, entrepreneurs, men and women, those are private stakeholders, those are private actors. So this requires the public sector giving the right conditions for this to happen and the private sector making it happen. And the organizations. We have 16 million family farmers in the region, 2 million artisanal fishermen and women. I don't know how many, hundreds of thousands of sellers, and they are all isolated at the smallest scale. They will not make it. They won't have access to the digital revolution. They will be left behind. And as we have said it for many decades, for other objectives, also for this one, the organization is key. In this sense, what are the most difficult aspects to achieve in the framework of these partnerships? Well, the most difficult part is to organize, reach an agreement. The most difficult thing is that all the stakeholders get coordinated in order to move forward faster and better. There is a trend not only in the rural world and agri-food systems that each one wants to do things on their own way, fighting for their own legitimate interests, right? But here we need collaboration, and that is the most difficult thing. How the 1,000 Digital Villages initiative embraces the need of the digital transformation of the rural world. Well, this is an initiative that was launched by the General Director of the FAO not too long ago, and it was launched for the first time in a meeting with ministers of agriculture of our region. Now, this is a world-level initiative, but the region was the first one to react to it, right? And we made a decision because there were other alternatives, but we made a decision to prioritize territories where there were or where we could promote initiatives related to rural tourism. But rural tourism around which you can connect farmers, local farmers that can sell their products, that can offer agritourism services where ecosystems could be created to perform activities around the territory with people that were visiting from outside, tourists. And what 1,000 Digital Villages is doing is that experience, how do we do it with the digital world? How do we do it so that people can communicate what they have available? They can maybe book a tour or facilitate the coordination between the different stakeholders, farmers, sellers, the municipal level government, however it is called in each country, at the local level, the businessmen, etc., etc. So this is an initiative that aims at promoting and accelerating thousands and thousands of initiatives. Latin America and the Caribbean is a region which is rich in culture, history, food, and it has a huge potential in terms of rural tourism as a highly successful commercial and economic activity. So a little bit over a year ago, we started working on this. We are working with 14 countries in the region with already thousands of people involved. And I would say we are still at a stage where we were sort of trying this out, whether it was going to work or not, and what things we needed to improve. At a large scale, I would say 14 countries is quite a lot, but the next step would be how do we take this from 14 countries to hopefully all 33 countries in Latin America in a short time frame, and how do we move from tens of experiences to hundreds and thousands of experiences? Now, the FAO will not be able to do this, but to escalate and to expand this, we need to engage in a dialogue and partnership with the governments and the private sector stakeholders, because they are the ones that need to say, okay, it works, it generates benefits, it is possible, it is practical, it is cost efficient, it brings benefit to people, it generated employment, income, etc. How do we promote this? And now it's a great alternative because it is very low cost and cost efficient. It isn't expensive at all. And now our region needs economic growth. We are in a very complicated situation. We continue having thousands, actually millions of young people, particularly that are unemployed. Well, there is an alternative here for young people, for businessmen, businesswomen to generate employment, growth, and well-being. Can you please tell us about a situation or achievement in the initiative that has been personally of significance to you? Well, I was touched by a training course that was done with, I would say, 200 young attendees that were trained by professionals like yourself for them to use their smartphones to produce material of high quality that were no longer just a video that you would do, but that could be used for communicational projects of the highest quality. The enthusiasm of the 200 young members was spectacular. We have had experiences in Costa Rica with indigenous communities that have taken ownership of this, not only to promote tourism in their territories, but also to promote their own culture, right? And to tell not only Costa Rica, but the world, there is a rich cultural heritage here. Let's pay attention to this. So that gives me hope in that what we are doing with digital villages, hopefully it happens in many different ways in the future. And it isn't only an alternative to generate employment and economic activities, but it also is a way to promote all the richness that rural societies offer, their culture, their food, their landscapes, especially making a bet on younger men and women. That is the key. It's them who are going to be part of the digital revolution in the countryside. Thank you so much, Julio, for offering your perspective regarding the challenges of the digital transformation in the rural world and in the agri-food systems. Thank you. The words of Julio encourage us to continue to join communities to the initiative of 1,000 digital villages. The rural world is part of the response to the challenges that we face as humankind. Young people are the main stakeholders of the digital transformation, furthermore in Latin America and the Caribbean. And just like in this event, we had over 1,200 people joining us through the social media and the website of FAO Americas. We want to stay in touch through our different platforms and through the different offices in our territories. In October, we will launch the first trade show of 1,000 digital villages with plenty of activities, and we want to invite you to stay tuned to the information that will be disseminated soon. We thank you all so much for your help and collaboration, and we thank you even more if you were joining us today. We will be expecting you in October in the trade show. See you soon. Thank you all so much for your